To Kegel or not to Kegel? That is the question. Hi everyone, welcome back. On today's episode of It's Not TMI, we're going to talk about Kegels. My name is Lisa Flanders. I'm a physiotherapist in Ottawa, Ontario, and I practice within women's and pelvic health. So what is a Kegel? Kegel exercises were described back in the 1940s by an American gynecologist, and they were contractions and relaxations of the pelvic floor, typically used to treat urinary incontinence and pelvic organ prolapse. A super common thing I hear in treatment is, I've been doing my Kegels, but I don't know if I'm doing them right. Well, strength can be a great thing. Not everybody needs to be doing strength training. Some quick facts about Kegels. Number one, Kegels are not specific. That means that when we do a Kegel contraction, we're generally doing a global pelvic floor contraction, but we might need to specifically be strengthening either our front or our back pelvic floor, and maybe not both. Number two, not all pelvic floor dysfunction is due to a weakness or a lack of tension within the pelvic floor. In fact, there are a lot of pelvic floors that have too much tension. I'm looking at you two pregnant mamas. A lot of women in pregnancy have a lot of tension within their pelvic floor because the pelvic floor is doing all this work to help support the additional pressure from above. Other dysfunctions that are typically caused by tension within the pelvic floor include stress urinary incontinence, pelvic pain, pain with intercourse, pain with insertion, pain with tampon use. So not all pelvic floor dysfunctions need to be supported by Kegels. Like all muscles in our body, our pelvic floor muscles need to be able to both contract and shorten, relax and lengthen. If we are walking around with a tense pelvic floor and we continue to shorten that pelvic floor, we're actually just going to create more tension, leading to more dysfunction. Number three, most people don't do Kegels correctly. What that means is they will really over-tense their back muscles and they'll really ignore their front muscles. So while they're doing a lot of Kegels, they're still seeing things like urinary incontinence. This creates an asymmetry between the back and the front of the pelvic floor. I also see people that think they're doing their Kegels and they start just bracing as hard as they can, and they're using every single muscle to generate tension. A lot of people hold their breath. They take a deep breath in, and then they start doing their Kegels. And those are all not effective way to do Kegel exercises or pelvic floor muscle activations. We want to make sure that we are breathing, we want to make sure that we are contracting in the appropriate spots, and we want to make sure that what we're doing is functional. This leads me into my next point. Number four, Kegels typically are not functional, meaning that they do not apply to the problems that we're having. Let's say you're having difficulty doing squats and you just start contracting and relaxing your quadricep muscles while you're in a standing or a lying down position. That will not transfer to the task that you have a concern about. So if you are having concerns with urinary incontinence when you're jumping or you're running, but you practice your Kegel exercises while you're in the car, that's not going to transfer over to what your meaningful task is. So when we're doing any sort of pelvic floor muscle activation, we want to make sure that we're applying it to the task that's important to us. Lastly, number five, while Kegels help with our pelvic floor, the pelvic floor is only one aspect of our deep core. We also want to be thinking of our diaphragm muscles. We want to be thinking about our front transversus abdominis muscles. We want to think of the pelvic floor, and then we also want to think of our deep back muscle called multifidus. So the deep core is made up of four structures, and when we're doing our Kegels, we're really only thinking about one of those structures. If you want to learn more about how to do pelvic floor muscle activations correctly, I want you to check out my colleague's Physio Breath series. I'm going to link the first one here. It's going to take you to the entire series. I really hope that this cleared some confusion up about whether you should be doing Kegels or whether you shouldn't be doing Kegels. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe.